And this is the point on the program. I introduce my guest analyst who will give his perspectives on the issues so far. I'm joined here in the studio by Rise News analyst Dr. Sam Amadi. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And quickly here, you've seen the talk from Chief Bode George in his attempt to see that the PDP is back under one umbrella. Tell us what you think of such an effort and how that can actually work in a place where some of these key protagonists are having a good romance with the APC.
Well, that's the big problem. First, Bode George has a point around maybe PDP's breach of faith in terms of maybe not going through with their convention or even their constitution prescribing zone of power and transfer of power. So essentially, the argument has been that maybe at that point, PDP would have said after 8 years of Buhari, they should have moved to the south. Again, the argument of northern PDP members has been that PDP has had more of south than north. Now, at this point, the PDP lost the election, at least until the Supreme Court says otherwise, or the tribunal. What we expect now is that they will go past that discussion. So it's really a bit irritating and counterproductive to stay on what the PDP did not do in 2023 election. What the party should be doing now is rebuilding. First, they have to fight their case in the tribunal in one accord, strong to win. Two, they have to go back to say we are going to be the major opposition. By virtue of structure, they are ahead of the Labour Party, even though Labour has greater intensity because of its composition and its more radical approach. So they have more structure to play a leading opposition. But you can look, if you look at the Twitter, if you look at, it looks as Labour is the real one that is probably claiming the high ground as the opposition. Now, if you look at the PDP leaders, there's been they quickly, emptied into the APC in terms of relationship. So if you see whether it's the former governor of River State, who controls a sizable portion of that party even before the elections, is, for all intents and purposes, an APC supporter in terms of supporting the government. Now, I think that the PDP is in a crisis because it's still relitigating the past, the issue of articles, maybe in retrospect, maybe he shouldn't have been a candidate. But he was a candidate, and the party didn't make it as INEC declared. What we expected now is gamemanship, where the party comes together. And then it tells a story around the notion of parties. Are there strong ideological commitment? In the Second Republic, we saw the emergence of NPN, PRP, UPN, JMPP. Even if they are not clean-cut ideological, occupying spectrums that are quite divided, there's a sense in which their founders have some significant and constant orientation, whether the Talakawas, whether with a broader neo-conservative...
Some kind of regional orientation.
Exactly, regional and ideological, neo-conservative, maybe Talakawa, progressive-minded, UPN and other. They tend to keep to that track. And when they do mergers, it carries, there's a principled reason why the UPN probably will work with NPP or PRP and NPP. Those things can happen. What we are seeing now is a whole lot of, nondescript flattening out of political ideology or even principle. Now, it's not just about ideology. I mean, we may have come to the end of history in figurative sense that ideologies probably don't count. But we should have come to the end of principle, end of structure and consistency. So if people were PDP since 1979, like Bode George says, I'm not going to leave. There must be something PDP represents in terms of ideology of national development.
And there's something to learn from him, because irrespective of what is analyzed so far, his region was hard done by the whole, schism, yet he stayed back.
He has been principled in the sense that I'm PDP. And again, look at his background. A former governor of bigger Western Nigeria or Lagos, as the case might be, a high-level military officer, a party leader for a long time. in real sense, what's the movement all about? So if it's not for pecuniary benefit, A is not going to run for governor, or most probably will not run for president. So why leave a party you have founded, you've been the leader for that too long? So I think that and again, this notion that elections are over, government has come in, let's all support the government, is nonsensical. Government has a program, has functionaries, those who campaign for it. Yeah. Now those who are on the other side ought to stay on the other side and provide strong opposition. And now the notion of opposition, I mean, it goes back to post-independence. When the idea, we talked about one-party state in Africa, the notion is that we are people of solidarity and communitarianism. We don't oppose each other. So let's come under one umbrella, okay, and drive development. And we didn't get development, we didn't get democracy. What matters is that there must be, democracy is based on competition and opposition. So opposition does not mean obstructing government. Opposition does not mean heckling the president. Opposition means that there was a vision for going to government, for an election. And you want to stand that vision, and you want to present a counter narrative to the ruling party. So it helps the ruling party to know that they need to craft interventions that would withstand the rigorous scrutiny of the opposition. So I think there is either pecuniary, self-serving, knee-jerk rejection of the idea that we can stay in opposition and not necessarily be working with the president or the new government. And so I think what PDP has done, that PDP has proved perennially to be incapable of holding on after election. In 2015, the same thing happened. Now, today, leaders of PDP, former leaders of current president, they all went to see reported to have met the president today. If you look at people who have gone to see the president, whether openly or through the back door, there are people who belong to a party that is strongly contesting its mandate at the tribunal.
Never before seen kind of politicking, high-powered politics there, but what do you think of such a visit? And that also includes Nyesom Wike, who is still a member of the PDP.
I think those visits are in bad faith and doesn't test well. Look, this government doesn't need all these politicians to drive the development. They had think tanks, they had policy people. So this is just politicking, So the notion that, we want to support the government. Look, the government needs three things to support. They need to win the cases in tribunal, the Supreme Court. They need to broaden coalition, and they need to craft policies that are sound with a larger swath of the Nigerian people, even those who didn't vote for it. So the fact that Nyesom Wike or Animal Pius or Mitu or any other person from anywhere from PDP or Labour Party visits Mr. President, it's not really showing up the legitimacy of political. It's political calculations for themselves primarily and for the government. But the bad thing about this is that we're going to see a politics that's so routine that essentially it's nothing. It means nothing. So it's all about getting elected. If you don't get elected, you switch to the people in power. So and then it creates an incentive and a narrative that, look, you can't win the guy in power. And so fait accompli, you lose. You join the guy who wins, because the guy who wins must win, whether he delivers or not. That's crippling of competitive politics. It's not good for democracy, not good for development. And so when we watch these things, it's all like begrudging the good fortune of those who won. It's like saying, wait a minute, how does this scrambling for positioning, how does this endless visit to the president, even when he's facing very serious challenge at the tribunal,
does it worry you that this might also snowball or trickle into the National Assembly, and some of the gains of the opposition just might get eroded?
I totally believe that. I have a niggling feeling that the Labour Party, for example, could wake up and say that it's holding nothing. I mean, if the essence is that we have to be in the ruling party because obvious, and then it speaks also about state capture. Why would people always want to be with the ruling party? Because the ruling party has the control of resources, access. Now, if the state was a state that is accountable, not corrupt, if a state was a state that where you have, even if you're a governor, you basically is not going to reach yourself, why would people feel this overwhelming impulse to be with the ruling party? So what we can see in the National Assembly is that by the time the dust settles, strategic thinking around what will I gain? I mean, I'm a lone voice in the opposition. So you might not see the strong opposition that we want to see now, a diversified National Assembly with Labour, with about 7 senators, with NNPP, with about 2 or 3, with PDP, significant number, and APC, majority but slight and overall minority, that will create bipartisanship. It's actually the soul of democracy. So if you see a National Assembly where these guys remain where they are, what that does for the presiding officer and for the agenda, the leader of the party National Assembly, would always be careful. How do we craft a bargain that gets approved, sails through this obstacle? It improves the rigor of policymaking, legislative policymaking. It creates that spirit of reaching out and inclusion. But if all these guys all jump and empty into this ruling party, then why would we bother about these other tendencies in our democracy? The tendencies that brought 7 senators. If you look at those senators, some of them can't win without the momentum of the obedient and Labour Party. What that means that there is a significant conception of politics out there that wants to be level, okay? It means that there's a significant concept of politics in Kano that wants to be NNPP because they see the Kokwanzo phenomenon and embrace it. It means that there are some people who want to be PDP. Now, if you go and betray that sentiment that drove you to power, then you have basically nullified that political voice. So you get back to the APC, and then you have denied the people who elected you the voice. And so I think that the way the legislators conceive legislative business as just constituents. So if I get there, I could get water to my people, I could get town hall, could get road. That's not the thing. That's the idea of, for example, maybe Southwest wants a lot more regional decentralization. So if they send you there, they send you there to canvas for restructuring.
And not to abandon them.
Absolutely. So it's not about...
Well, that's a fine place for us to leave it. Dr. Sam Amadi, always a delight speaking with you here on Arise Prime Time.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for the program. Do join us again tomorrow from me, Sulaiman, and the entire team. It's goodbye and thanks for watching.